Denise Whitfield was 34 years old when her husband told her she'd become boring. Too tired, too busy, too focused on the business she'd spent years building. Roland said he needed a solo trip to clear his head. He needed space from her. She drove him to the airport herself and wished him a safe flight. That night, an email landed in her inbox. A resort welcome confirmation. Her name on the reservation. Her frequent flyer number. Her card on file. Roland hadn't booked a solo trip at all. Scrolling further, she found the second boarding pass. Not a stranger's name. Yolanda's. Her best friend of 15 years, seated beside her husband on a flight funded entirely through Denise's own identity. Roland believed she'd never look closely enough to notice. He had no idea what she was capable of when she did. Denise closed her laptop and, in the silence of her kitchen, made a decision that would end everything he thought he understood about her. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from today. And if stories like this speak to you, hit subscribe, because tomorrow's story is even more intense. The tent was wrong. Denise Whitfield saw it the second she stepped onto the back lawn of the Hargrove estate. The main structure was pitched 6 feet too far east, which meant the string lights would hang directly over the catering tables instead of the dance floor, and the whole visual anchor of the evening would be gone. She didn't raise her voice. She never did. She pressed her clipboard against her hip, pulled out her phone, and dialed the rental company while walking toward the florist's van to check the centerpiece delivery at the same time. "Kevin?" Her voice was smooth and even. "The primary tent is misaligned. I need your crew to shift it west before noon, or we're going to have a real problem tonight. The Hargroves are expecting 200 guests at 7 o'clock, and I will not have a lighting disaster because of a measuring error." A pause. Kevin started to explain about the ground stakes, about soft soil near the east edge, about how a 6-foot shift would take at least 3 hours, Denise said calmly. "You have 3. I've seen your crew work fast when they need to. I know you can do this." She softened her voice just slightly, just enough. "And Kevin, I've got 2 referrals sitting on my desk right now from clients looking for tent rentals. I'd love to send them your way after tonight." Another pause, then, "We'll be there in 45 minutes. She hung up and turned to the florist without missing a step. By 4 in the afternoon, the tent was fixed, the centerpieces were set, and the Hargroves had done a walkthrough that left Mrs. Hargrove quietly crying in the good way, pressing both of Denise's hands between hers and whispering, "It's everything I wanted." Terrence was waiting by the catering entrance when Denise stepped out, his reading glasses pushed up to his forehead, a printed spreadsheet in one hand and a coffee in the other. "Florist invoice came in 12% over quote," he said without preamble. "I already talked to Marcus. He's adjusting it." "Of course you did." Terrence handed her the coffee. "The deposit from the Nguyen wedding cleared this morning. We're solid through Q3. Denise allowed herself a small smile. 2 years ago, Whitfield Events had been her alone. A laptop, a storage unit full of linens, and a client list built 1 referral at a time. Now there was an office in Midtown, a staff of 4, and Terrence Ojo at her side, keeping the financial side tight and clean. He was the kind of partner who gave you credit when things went right, and never said, "I told you so," when they didn't. She had learned in the past year how rare that was. "Go home," Terrence said. "I'll close out tonight." "I just need to—" "Denise." He looked at her over the rim of his glasses. "Go home." Home was a townhouse in Eastside, with a kitchen she had renovated herself, or rather, had spent 8 weekends choosing every detail of. Warm white cabinets, brass fixtures, herringbone tile on the floor. She loved that kitchen. Roland was already at the table when she got in, his plate in front of him, phone face down beside his glass. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag on the bench by the door. "How was your day?" "Fine." She pulled open the fridge and started putting together a plate from the leftovers she'd prepped on Sunday. She asked about the quarterly review he'd mentioned that morning. He gave 1-word answers. She tried again, asked if he wanted to take a walk after dinner, something they used to do on warm evenings, down to the park and back. Roland finally looked up from his phone. "You know what your problem is?" He said it almost lazily, like he'd been thinking it for a while and had just decided to let it out. You used to be fun, Denise. Now everything's about work. Vendors, invoices, clients. It's like living with a spreadsheet. She set her fork down. Quiet. A beat. I had a 14-hour day, she said. I know. You always do. He shrugged and looked back at his phone. She ate the rest of her dinner in silence. Later, while she was loading the dishwasher, Roland leaned against the counter and mentioned, offhand, like it was nothing, that he was thinking about taking a solo trip next month. Just need to clear my head, he said. Some space from all this. The work mode. The always-on thing you've got going. All this. She wasn't sure if all this meant her job, or her, or both. Okay, she said. She kept her voice easy. That's fine. He nodded and took his phone to the other room. She heard him close the bedroom door. She stayed up late finishing an email chain for a September booking. Around midnight, she opened her laptop at the kitchen table to check for a vendor confirmation she was expecting. There was a new email at the top of her inbox. The subject line read, Welcome to Coral Reef Cove Resort and Spa. Booking confirmation. Denise didn't recognize the name. She had not booked any resort. She opened the email. Her name was at the top, her frequent flyer number, her home address in the billing section, and a check-in date of next month. The email was real. Denise stared at it for a full 10 seconds before she moved, before her fingers scrolled down, before her brain caught up to what her eyes were already reading. Coral Reef Cove Resort and Spa, Turks and Caicos Islands. 7 nights. Check-in, July 14th. Her name was in the header. Her frequent flyer number, the one she had been collecting points on for 3 years, every vendor payment, every business flight, every hotel stay for a client site visit, was listed under the loyalty rewards section. The booking had used her points to upgrade the room to an oceanfront suite. Her stored credit card had been charged the remaining balance. Her card, her points, her name. She scrolled down. The itinerary was detailed. Sunset catamaran cruise on day 2, a private snorkeling excursion on day 4, and there, listed under day 5 activities, was a couple's spa package. 2 people. Side-by-side massage. A bottle of champagne included. Her chest went very still. She kept scrolling. The boarding pass confirmations were at the bottom of the email. 2 of them, attached as a single PDF. She clicked it open. The first name was Roland Whitfield. The second name was Yolanda Price. Denise read it twice, then a third time, as if the name might change if she looked long enough. It didn't. Yolanda Price. Her best friend. The woman who had been sitting at her kitchen table 3 Sundays ago, drinking her coffee, laughing about a bad date, telling Denise she didn't know what she would do without her. 15 years. Since college. Since the apartment they shared their junior year with no heat and a broken stove. Since Yolanda had stood in the second row at Denise's wedding and cried the ugly, happy kind of tears. Yolanda Price. Denise set her phone face down on the table. Then she picked it back up. She read the email a 4th time, slower now, paying attention to every detail the way she paid attention to every detail of every event she had ever planned. Looking for the thing that didn't fit, the thing she might have missed. There was nothing to miss. It was all there. Clean, clear, damning. Roland had told her he needed a solo trip to clear his head. He had sat at their table 3 feet away from her and said he needed space. He had booked the trip in her name, charged it to her card, used her points to make it nicer, and planned to walk through a resort door with her best friend while Denise stayed home thinking he was alone somewhere, sorting himself out. She thought about the way he'd said it. "You used to be fun." So casual, like he was annoyed at her, like she had done something wrong. She sat with that for a long moment. Then she got up, went to the kitchen, and drank a full glass of water standing over the sink. She looked out the dark window above it, at the small square of backyard she could barely see. She breathed in. She breathed out. She went back to the table. She did not go to the bedroom. She did not wake Roland up. She did not stand in the doorway and let the hot, jagged thing rising in her chest come out the way part of her wanted it to. She sat back down in front of her laptop and read the email one more time. She looked at every line: the confirmation number, the billing breakdown, the check-in instructions addressed to her, welcoming her to a trip she would never have taken because she didn't know it existed. At 12:42 in the morning, she picked up her phone and called Terrence. He answered on the third ring, groggy but alert. He knew her well enough to know she wouldn't call at this hour without a reason. "Hey," he said. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of how steady it was. "I just need a favor." A pause. "Okay." "Tomorrow morning, before anything else, I need you to pull our joint account statements. Everything from the last 8 months. Transaction by transaction." She kept her voice low, even though Roland was behind a closed door down the hall. "Don't say anything to anyone. Just pull the records and sit on them until I get there." Terrence was quiet for a moment. She could hear him thinking. "Denise," he said carefully, "are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "I just need to see some numbers." Another pause, then simply, "I'll have it ready." "Thank you," she said, and she hung up. She sat at the table for a little while longer. She looked at the email one last time. Then she closed the laptop. The kitchen was quiet. The brass fixtures caught the low light above the stove. The herringbone tile stretched across the floor she had picked out herself, one small square sample at a time. She had built something real here. She breathed in slowly, and she breathed out, and she made herself a promise. She would not confront Roland. Not yet. Not like this. She would watch. She would wait. And she would know exactly what she was dealing with before she said a single word. The office smelled like fresh coffee and printer ink when Denise pushed through the glass door at 7:45. Terrence was already at his desk, 2 monitors lit up, a yellow legal pad beside his keyboard. He looked up when she walked in. He didn't say good morning. He just looked at her face and nodded once, like he already understood that pleasantries weren't where they were starting today. She sat down in the chair across from him. She set her bag on the floor. She folded her hands on the edge of his desk. "Roland is taking a trip to Turks and Caicos," she said. "He told me it's solo, a trip to clear his head." She paused. "The reservation was booked under my name, my frequent flyer number, my credit card on file. He used my loyalty points to upgrade to an oceanfront suite." Terrence didn't move. "There were 2 boarding passes on the confirmation," she said. "Roland Whitfield and Yolanda Price." The room was very quiet. Somewhere down the hall, a printer hummed. Terrence sat back in his chair slowly, the way a person does when they want to say something but are choosing the right words carefully. His jaw tightened for just a moment. Then it relaxed. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Since last night." "Did you say anything to him?" "No." He nodded. "Good." He turned to his keyboard. "I started pulling the joint account statements this morning. I've got the last 8 months queued up. You want to go through them now, or—" "Now," she said. They spent the next 90 minutes going through every line together. Terrence walked her through each transaction in a flat, clear voice, the way he did in their business reviews. No emotion, just facts. He pointed, she looked. She kept her face even. She had learned long ago that feelings were most useful when they were quiet. That evening, Roland's duffel bag sat open on their bed, half-packed. He moved through the room in a good mood, better than he'd been in weeks. Looser, lighter. He held up 2 shirts and asked which one he should bring. "The blue one," she said from the doorway. "It photographs better." He tossed the blue one in without giving the comment a second thought. She watched him fold a pair of linen shorts. She watched him tuck his toiletry bag into the side pocket. She watched him move like a man who had no idea he was already standing on the edge of something. "You really would have hated it anyway," he said, not looking up. "You know how you get about just sitting still. You're not really a vacation person anymore, Denise." "You're probably right," she said. He zipped the bag. "Besides, you'll have plenty to keep you busy." He said it cheerfully, like that made it better. She smiled at the doorframe. "Have you seen your passport?" "I can't find it anywhere." "Nightstand, second drawer." She had noticed it there 2 days ago without knowing why it mattered. Now she knew. He pulled the drawer open and found it immediately. "See, that's why I need you," he said, grinning. She held the smile exactly in place. "Safe travels," she said. She drove him to the airport in the morning. She took the highway, kept the music low. Roland talked about the resort's food situation and whether the car he'd arranged was going to be on time. She asked the right questions at the right moments. She nodded. At the departures curb, he kissed her cheek and grabbed his bag from the back seat. "I'll text you when I land," he said. "Please do," she said. She watched him walk through the sliding glass doors. She watched until the doors closed behind him and he became just another shape moving through the terminal crowd. Then she sat there for a moment, engines still running. She picked up her phone and dialed Yolanda's number. It rang twice and went to voicemail. "Hey, it's Yoli! Leave me something good!" Denise ended the call without leaving a message. She set the phone down on the passenger seat. She looked at the space where Roland had been sitting 30 seconds ago. She looked at the glass doors. She looked at her hands on the steering wheel, her knuckles tight, her nails pressing small crescents into her palms. And then, quietly, in the privacy of her own car with no one watching, she let herself feel it. The 15 years she had given Yolanda. The way she had picked up the phone every time Yolanda called. The coffee, the dinners, the money she had quietly lent when things got hard. The wedding where Yolanda had cried those ugly, happy tears. All of it surfaced at once, heavy and sharp, and she let it move through her like a wave. Just this once, just here, just for a minute. When it passed, her eyes were wet. She reached up and wiped them with the back of her hand, one side, then the other. She straightened in her seat. She set her jaw. "Let them have their trip," she said out loud, to no one, to herself, to the empty passenger seat. Then she put the car in drive and headed straight to Terrence's office. The conference table was covered in paper, printed bank statements, 3 months at a time, laid side by side in neat rows. Terrence had color-coded the entries with a highlighter, yellow for regular household charges, pink for the ones that didn't fit. There were a lot of pink ones. Denise sat with her hands flat on the table, studying the columns. The numbers were clean, typed, impersonal, like they hadn't just rewritten everything she thought she knew about her marriage. Terrence stood at the head of a table with a pen, not to write with, just to point. "Let's start here," he said, tapping a line from 8 months ago. "November 14th, $250. Category label says home repair." He moved the pen to the right. "November 28th, another $250. Same label." Denise looked at the dates. "We didn't have any work done on the house in November." "No," he said. "You didn't." He tapped 3 more matching entries, moving forward in time, steady and methodical. December, January, February. It continued every 2 weeks, sometimes 250, sometimes 300. He varied the amount slightly, just enough that it wouldn't land the same way on a quick scroll-through. She looked up. He varied it on purpose. That's my read, Terrence said simply. He moved to a separate stack, the pages from February through April. He laid them out in a line. This category started showing up in the new year. He pointed. Family loan, family loan, family loan. 4 entries, 5. Different label, but same pattern. Bi-weekly, always under 350. Denise's eyes moved across the page without blinking. Terrence set the pen down and picked up a single sheet, a printed calendar grid he'd built himself, dates marked in red. I cross-referenced with this. He laid it beside the statements. Yolanda's divorce was finalized in January. Her lease on the apartment she shared with her ex ended February 1st. The room was quiet. Denise looked at the calendar. She looked at the bank statements. She didn't need him to say it out loud. The dates lined up so cleanly they almost looked intentional. Because they were. He was covering her rent, she said. And more than that, Terrence said. He turned over one of the later pages and pointed to a cluster of entries in March and April. Grocery delivery, a car insurance payment, a utility account that isn't tied to your address. He paused. This wasn't him sending money to someone he was sleeping with. This was him building her a floor to stand on. Denise sat back in her chair. A second life. That was the right word for it. Not a fling, not a mistake that got out of hand. Something deliberate. Something maintained. Something Roland had been quietly funding and protecting for months while sitting across from her at the dinner table, kissing her goodbye in the morning, asking her which shirt to pack. She pressed her lips together and said nothing for a moment. "What's the total?" she asked. Terrence slid a single notepad page across the table toward her. A number sat at the bottom of a short column, circled once. She looked at it. It was more than she expected. It was significantly more. "The trip alone," Terrence said, his voice careful. "The resort, the flights, the excursions. I pulled the charges from your card this morning." He set another page down beside the notepad. "It's sitting just under $4,200. Denise looked at the number. "Denise." He waited until she looked up at him. "Your expansion loan application. The collateral cushion you've been building for the last 14 months. He didn't say it loudly. "This trip alone cuts into that margin, between the card balance and what's been drawn from the joint savings." He stopped. He looked at her steadily. "You're not in a crisis, but you're closer to the edge than you were a year ago." She absorbed that. Roland hadn't just taken her credit card. He hadn't just taken her best friend. He had quietly, methodically leaned against the structure she had been building for herself, the things she had worked for, sacrificed for, organized her whole professional life around, and he had worn it down without her ever knowing to protect it. She thought about that loan application sitting in a folder on her desk at home. 14 months of careful decisions to get that cushion right. Every vendor contract negotiated tight, every invoice followed up on time, every dollar redirected with purpose. She thought about Roland telling her she was always in work mode. Her jaw tightened. Then she reached over and began stacking the pages into an even pile, edges squared, the way she organized everything. "I need to know more before I decide what to do next," she said. "Specifically, I need to know how long this has really been going on, how far back it started." She smoothed the top of the stack with one hand. "Roland doesn't talk to anyone the way he talks to his mother, and Patricia has always been honest with me, even when she doesn't mean to be." Terrence nodded slowly. Denise pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. "I'm going to schedule lunch with her tomorrow," she said. "I need to know how long this has really been going on." The diner was warm and smelled like coffee and sweet potato pie. Patricia Whitfield loved this place. She'd been coming here since before Roland was born, she always said. Her regular booth was the third one from the window, where the afternoon light came in soft and yellow through the frosted glass. She was already seated when Denise arrived, wearing a purple blouse and a wide smile, waving like Denise was the best part of her Wednesday. There she is. Patricia stood halfway to hug her, pulling her in with both arms. She smelled like shea butter and something floral. "I was so happy when you called, baby. I feel like I haven't seen you in months." "Too long," Denise said, and she meant it. She slid into the booth across from her and set her purse beside her. The table had a small vase with a fake carnation in it. The laminated menu was the same one they'd had for years. Denise knew it by heart. They ordered quickly. Patricia got her usual, smothered pork chops, a side of greens, and sweet tea. Denise got the chicken soup and a water. The waitress left, and the conversation settled into its comfortable rhythm. Patricia talked about her church's fundraiser, a neighbor's new dog, a reality show she'd gotten hooked on. Denise listened, laughed in the right places, and let the small talk build its cushion. She was patient. She knew how to wait. After the food came, after Patricia had taken a few bites and gotten comfortable, Denise stirred her soup and said, "How do you think Roland's been doing lately? He seemed a little off to me before the trip." Patricia looked up, chewing. Something shifted behind her eyes, small, but Denise caught it. "He's got a lot on his mind," Patricia said. "You know how he gets when things feel heavy." "I do," Denise said. Her voice was easy, open. "Did he say what was bothering him?" Patricia set down her fork. She looked at Denise with the kind of expression a person wears when they're deciding how much to say. "He mentioned he's been sorting through some things," she said. "With a friend." She paused. "He said the two of them are figuring some things out." Denise nodded slowly. "A friend." "Mm-hmm." Patricia picked her fork back up. "I didn't ask too many questions. I figure he'll come to me when he's ready." The soup in front of Denise was untouched. She picked up her spoon. "Did he say anything about how things are at home?" she asked. Still casual, still soft. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "He said he's been unhappy for a while," she said finally. Her voice dropped a little. "A couple years, he told me. Said the two of you just—" She stopped, waved her hand. "He said things changed. A couple of years." Denise let that land and didn't flinch. She took a slow spoonful of soup and set the spoon down. She looked at the fake carnation in the little vase. The plastic petals were slightly dusty at the tips. 2 years. He had been feeding that story, his unhappiness, his distance, his quiet justification, for 2 years. Before the accounts, before the rent payments, before the trip. He had been building his exit and laying the groundwork for why it wasn't his fault for 2 years. And his mother had known some version of it. "We're going through a rough patch," Denise said, smiling just enough. "It's nothing we can't work through." Patricia reached across the table and patted her hand. Her touch was warm and genuine. "I know it. You two will be fine." She paused. "You've always been the steady one, Denise. I've always said that." Denise smiled back. She stayed another 40 minutes. She finished most of her soup. She hugged Patricia goodbye at the door and waited until she was in her car, 2 blocks away, before she let out a long, controlled breath through her nose. She called Terrence. He picked up on the second ring. "How'd it go?" "He told his mother he's been unhappy for a couple of years," Denise said. "He described Yolanda as a friend they're both figuring some things out with." Patricia didn't push, but she knew enough. A pause. 2 years. 2 years, Denise repeated. "The money trail starts at 8 months, but this started long before the money." "So the finances are just the part he had to eventually fund," Terrence said. "Right. The feelings came first. The plan came second. The money came third." She stopped at a red light. "The trip is just the surface. We're looking at something that goes a lot deeper." "What do you want to do next?" The light turned green. "I need to deal with the resort," she said. "The reservation is still under my name, which means I still have options there." She turned onto her street. "I know someone at that property. I planned a wedding there 2 years ago." "I remember," Terrence said. "Let me make a call," she said. "I'll be in touch." She ended the call and pulled into her driveway. Inside, she set her purse on the counter, sat down at her desk, and opened her laptop. She typed the name of the resort into the search bar. She clicked through to the management contact page and found the name she was looking for: Camille Reyes, General Manager. Camille Reyes picked up on the third ring. Her face filled the screen: warm brown skin, natural hair pinned back, a white resort polo with a small gold name tag on the collar. She was at her desk, and behind her, Denise could see a tall window with blue-green water in the distance. The kind of water you paid a lot of money to look at. "Denise Whitfield?" Camille smiled wide, leaning toward the camera. "Girl, it has been too long. How are you?" "I'm good," Denise said. Her voice was easy, warm. She'd practiced this tone in the car. "Busy, but good. How are things down there?" "Beautiful as always." Camille glanced at the window behind her. "You know it never changes. That's the whole point." They caught up for a few minutes. Camille mentioned a conference she'd attended in Miami. Denise mentioned a corporate gala she'd just wrapped. It felt natural because it was natural. Their friendship had started over a weekend of vendor chaos and a florist who'd arrived with the wrong centerpieces, and it had held up well since. Then Denise eased into it. "Actually," she said, "I'm calling about a reservation. My husband is there right now, and I wanted to confirm some details for a little something I'm coordinating." She smiled just slightly. "I booked everything under my name. Loyalty account, the card on file, all of it. Can you pull it up?" "Of course." Camille turned to her monitor, fingers moving on the keyboard. "What name?" "Whitfield. First name Denise." "Got it." A pause while she read. "Okay, yes, I have it. Oceanfront suite, top floor." She scrolled. "Couple spa package, 2 days. Deep sea excursion, Thursday. Sunset catamaran, Friday." Another pause. "And a private dinner reservation, Saturday, on the terrace." Denise kept her face still. She had known it would be nice. She had not pictured this. Sunset catamarans, a private dinner, the top floor suite. "And the card on file is the visa ending in 4471? Denise asked. "That's the one," Camille said. Denise pulled up her card statement on a second tab. She already knew the number. She'd checked it that morning. The available balance was $312. Her card had a $9,000 limit, the running balance that Roland had built over 8 months of slow, quiet, deliberate spending sat just below it. The resort charges had pushed it to the edge. A few more incidental charges, room service, a drink at the bar, a forgotten minibar snack, and it would be over the limit entirely. She stared at the number for a moment. That card was the one she'd used as collateral documentation for her business expansion loan. She and Terrence had been building toward it for over a year. New office space, a second full-time hire, the equipment to handle larger events. The loan officer had flagged her available credit as part of the qualification. Available credit meant headroom. It meant financial stability. It meant she was someone who managed her money carefully and had room to grow. At $312, she didn't look like that anymore. Roland hadn't just spent her money. He had spent the proof that she was a safe investment. He had gone after the one thing she had built entirely on her own. Her business, her reputation, her future. And he had done it without ever touching it directly, without ever having to care, because he'd never cared about what she was building in the first place. She felt the anger move through her, clean and cold, like water. She let it pass. "Everything looks great," she said calmly. "I appreciate you pulling that up." There was a small pause on the other end. "Denise?" Camille's voice had changed, just a little, softer, careful. "Is everything all right?" Denise looked at the camera for a moment. She thought about saying yes. She was good at yes. She had been saying yes to that question for 3 years without meaning it. "No," she said. "Not really." Camille set her pen down. She folded her hands and gave Denise her full attention, the same way she had that first weekend in the Turks, when the florist had shown up with blush roses instead of ivory, and the mother of the bride was 20 minutes from arriving. Steady. Ready. So Denise told her. Not all of it, not the 2 years, not every number, not the weight of Patricia's voice over smothered pork chops, but enough. The booking under her name without her knowledge, her card, her loyalty points, her identity used to fund a trip she was never invited on, the name on the second boarding pass, and the loan. What this balance meant for the loan. She kept her voice level. She didn't rush, and she didn't waver. When she finished, the screen was quiet. Camille pressed her lips together. She exhaled through her nose. Then she said, in a low, measured voice that Denise recognized as contained fury, "He booked the top suite on your card and brought another woman here." "Yes," Denise said, "and you're on file as the primary account holder. Everything is in my name." Camille nodded once, slowly. Her eyes had gone sharp. "Then you have more options than he thinks," she said. "Tell me what you need." Terrence had coffee waiting when she arrived. That was just who he was. He never made a fuss of it, never mentioned it. He just knew when something was coming, and he prepared. 2 mugs on the conference table, the bank statements still spread out from the day before, and a fresh legal pad with a pen already uncapped. Denise sat down, wrapped both hands around the mug, and told him everything. She started with the suite, the top floor, the couple's spa package, the sunset catamaran, the private terrace dinner on Saturday night. She watched Terrence's jaw tighten as she listed each item, but he didn't say anything. He wrote. Then she told him about the card. $312, she said. "That's what's left." Terrence set the pen down, slowly, the way you set something down when you don't trust what your hands might do otherwise. "That's the card you listed as collateral documentation," he said. "Yes. For the loan we've been building toward for 14 months. "Yes, Terrence." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Okay," in the voice he used when he was doing the math behind his eyes and had already come out the other side. "Okay, so what did Camille say?" Denise told him that part too, the way Camille had listened, the way she'd gone still and sharp when she understood the full picture. "Then you have more options than he thinks." Terrence picked the pen back up. "She's right. Everything is in your name." "Every piece of it." Denise spread her hands across the table. "The room, the excursions, the spa package. My loyalty points bought the room upgrade. My card is the one on file. My frequent flyer number is attached to both boarding passes." She looked at him steadily. "I booked nothing. But legally, I own all of it." Terrence leaned back. He turned the pen between his fingers once, then stopped. "You know what that means?" "It means I don't have to wait." She'd been thinking about it the whole drive over. She hadn't slept much, but the lack of sleep wasn't exhaustion. It was clarity, the kind that hums just below your skin when you finally stopped waiting for something to be different and started deciding what happens next. She didn't need Roland to come home. She didn't need a confrontation in their kitchen, in their house, among their furniture, on his schedule. Everything was in her name. That had been his laziness, his arrogance, the assumption that she would never look. But it meant she held the controls, every single one. "I'm calling the bank this morning," she said. "I'm reporting the card as compromised, because it was, and freezing any further charges. Whatever he tries to put on it today, tomorrow, it won't go through." Terrence nodded. He was already writing. "Then I'm calling Camille back. She's going to close the account formally, remove me as guarantor, effective tomorrow morning. Any remaining balance, any charges that haven't cleared, that becomes Roland's problem to settle directly with the resort." Terrence looked up. "They'll ask him to pay before he can check out." "That's between him and the front desk." A small pause. "And you?" Terrence asked, though something in his expression said he already suspected. "I booked a flight last night," Denise said. "I leave tonight. Early morning arrival. I'll be there by the time checkout starts." Terrence was quiet for a moment. He set the pen down again, this time gently. I can come with you. I've got nothing I can't move around. Denise shook her head. The answer came without hesitation. I know you can, she said, and I know why you're offering. But no. She looked at him directly. This one is mine. I need to finish it myself. Terrence held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded once, not reluctantly, but with the particular kind of respect that meant he understood. Then let's make sure you have everything you need before you go, he said, pulling the legal pad closer. Walk me through the bank call. I want to make sure we document the fraud angle correctly so there's no blowback on the loan application. They spent the next 2 hours working. Terrence helped her draft the language for the fraud report. Careful, factual, precise. He pulled the specific account clauses from their loan documentation that showed why available credit mattered, so she had it in writing if the loan officer asked questions later. She called the bank from the conference room. She was calm and clear on the phone, the same way she was calm and clear with vendors who'd made expensive mistakes. Firm, specific, unmoved by the hold music. She called Camille next. Camille was ready. She asked no extra questions. She simply confirmed the steps, confirmed the timing, and said, I'll have everything in order before you land. Thank you, Denise said. Don't thank me, Camille said. Just get here. That evening, Denise stood in her bedroom and pulled a single overnight bag from the top shelf of the closet. She packed light. 1 change of clothes, her toiletry case, her folder of documentation, printed statements, the confirmation emails, the fraud report reference number, all of it organized by date. She zipped the bag, set it by the door, and turned off the bedroom light. Then she picked up her keys and headed to the airport. The flight was smooth. Denise slept for most of it. Real sleep, deep and still, the kind that only comes when the deciding is already done. She woke up 20 minutes before landing, with her neck straight and her hands folded in her lap, and she watched the island come into view through the small oval window. The water was that specific blue, the kind you only ever see in photographs and assume is edited. It wasn't. She let the other passengers go first. There was no rush. Camille had sent a car. It was waiting at arrivals, a white SUV, clean and quiet, with a driver who introduced himself and asked no questions. Denise sat in the back with her overnight bag on the seat beside her and watched the palm trees go by. The air here smelled different, warmer, thick with salt and something floral she couldn't name. She texted Camille 1 word: landed. Camille responded in seconds. They're at the pool bar finishing breakfast. Take your time. Denise slid the phone into her bag and looked out the window. The resort was exactly as she remembered. Open-air lobby, white stone floors, ceiling fans turning slow overhead. The kind of place that made you feel like the rest of the world had agreed to pause for a while. She had spent 4 days here 2 years ago, managing every detail of a destination wedding for a client who cried happy tears every single morning of the trip. Denise had eaten her meals at the pool bar then, usually alone, usually with a binder open beside her plate. She knew where everything was. She checked in at the front desk under her own name, because of course it was her name on the reservation, and left her bag with the bellhop. Then she found the poolside terrace. She heard them before she saw them. Roland's laugh. She knew it. The low, rolling sound he made when he was comfortable and showing off at the same time. She hadn't heard it directed at her in a long time. She spotted them from behind the open-air bar, a 2-top table near the pool's edge, half shaded by a wide umbrella. Roland in a linen shirt, sun on his face, the kind of relaxed she hadn't seen from him in months. Yolanda across from him in a sundress with her hair pinned up, leaning forward the way she did when she was performing her best version of herself. There were empty mimosa glasses between them, a half-eaten fruit plate, sunscreen on the table. Denise found a chair set back from the main pool area, close enough to see but tucked into the shade near a row of potted palms. She sat down, crossed her ankles. A server came by and she ordered a sparkling water. She waited. Camille came from the direction of the lobby. She wore the resort's white linen staff blazer, her dark hair back, her expression professional and unreadable. She moved with the easy authority of someone who ran this place and knew it, stopping at the table with a tablet in hand and a polite, practiced smile. "Good morning. I'm so sorry to interrupt." Camille set the tablet flat on the table and turned it briefly toward Roland. "I'm the general manager. We have a small matter to address before checkout tomorrow, if you have just a moment." Roland looked up. Easy, confident, not a man who expected bad news on a Tuesday morning in Turks and Caicos. "Sure," he said. "What's going on?" "The payment method on file for this reservation has been reported and closed," Camille said. Her voice was perfectly even. "That affects the room, the excursion packages, and the spa booking. The outstanding balance needs to be settled before departure." Roland blinked. "Wait, there must be a mix-up. The trip was already paid for." "The original card was closed by the account holder," Camille said. "I'm afraid the charges did not fully process before that happened. The balance due is," she glanced at the tablet, $2,430. Roland pushed back slightly in his chair. The easy smile was still there, but it had thinned. "Okay, that's fine." He reached into the back pocket of his shorts and pulled out his wallet, drew out a card, handed it over like a man who'd handled small inconveniences before and fully expected to handle this one. Camille ran it on the tablet's reader. She waited a moment, then she turned the screen slightly, just enough for Roland to see. Declined. The silence at the table stretched. Roland stared at the screen. Yolanda looked at Roland. Roland looked back at the screen as if looking harder might change what it said. "I can try a different card if you have one," Camille offered, her voice carrying nothing more than professional courtesy. That was when Denise stood up. She walked toward the table slowly, her sparkling water still in hand, her bag on her shoulder, her white linen shirt unwrinkled from travel. She stopped a few feet away, in the full sun, and waited for them to see her. Roland looked up first. His mouth opened and then closed again. Yolanda turned. The color left her face so fast it looked like something had been switched off behind her eyes. Denise looked at both of them without hurry. Then she looked at Roland. "The room was never yours to give away, Roland," she said evenly. "It was mine." Nobody moved. Roland sat with his declined card still on the table in front of him, one hand resting beside it like he'd forgotten it was there. Yolanda had both hands in her lap. The mimosa glasses were still between them. The fruit plate was still half-eaten. The umbrella above them swayed once in the breeze. The pool made soft sounds behind them. Denise pulled out the empty chair across from them and sat down. She set her sparkling water on the table. She looked at them both the way she looked at a contract, carefully, without expression, finding every line. She was the one who spoke first. "I'm not here to make a scene," she said. "I want you to know that up front." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. She set it on the table and smoothed it flat with 2 fingers. It was a printed summary, account statements, dates, transfer amounts, categories. 8 months, she said. That's how far back the withdrawals go. Small ones, mostly. Home repairs, family loans. Except there were no repairs, and there was no family loan. She looked at Roland. There was Yolanda's rent, her utilities, her car insurance. You've been running a second household out of our joint savings since her divorce. Roland's jaw shifted. Denise, I'm not finished. He closed his mouth. This trip cost $2,430, which is the number Camille just read to you from my account. She kept her voice even and low. My account, my name, my frequent flyer number, my stored card, my loyalty tier that took 3 years to build. She paused. That money was sitting against the collateral for my business expansion loan, the one I've been building toward for 2 years. You didn't just take a vacation, Roland. You went after the one thing I built for myself. Roland leaned forward then, and something shifted in his face. The surprise was wearing off. What was underneath it was worse. It was excuse, already formed, already rehearsed. "You want to know why I felt like I needed to get away?" His voice had an edge to it now. "Because I haven't felt like your priority in years. You're always working, always in your head. I told you I was unhappy and you just kept going." "You didn't tell me you were unhappy," Denise said. "You told me I was boring. You told me I wasn't fun anymore. There's a difference." "That's not— You told your mother you'd been unhappy for years." She said it without raising her voice, but the word landed hard. "I had lunch with Patricia while you were here. She mentioned it. She thought I already knew." Roland went still. Denise let that sit for a moment. Then she looked at Yolanda. Yolanda had been quiet since she'd turned and seen Denise standing in the sun. Now her eyes were wet, and her chin was doing that small, trembling thing it did when she was trying to hold herself together in public. "Dee," she said softly, "I need you to know I never wanted it to be like this. I was in a really dark place after the divorce, and Roland was he was there. I didn't plan for it to become—" "You didn't plan," Denise repeated. "I know how it sounds. You boarded a flight," Denise said. "You packed a bag. You sat in the seat next to my husband on a plane heading to a resort booked under my name, charged to my card, using my points." She looked at Yolanda directly. "That's not something that happens to you. That's a series of choices you made, every single day for 8 months. Yolanda pressed her lips together. "I'm not asking you to explain it," Denise said. "I'm not interested in understanding how you got there. I'm telling you, I see exactly what happened. And I need you to stop looking at me like I owe you the comfort of my forgiveness right now." The table was quiet. A couple walked past on the pool deck laughing about something, and then the sound faded and it was quiet again. Denise looked at Roland. "Our marriage is over," she said. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't angry. It was just a fact, stated in the same tone you'd use to read a number off a page. "You'll hear from my attorney. I'd focus on figuring out how you're getting home before you start worrying about anything else." She looked at Yolanda. "And we're done," she said. 15 years, and you got on that plane. We're done." Yolanda opened her mouth. Denise stood up. She picked up her sparkling water. She folded the paper and slid it back into her bag. She looked at Camille, who had remained standing at the edge of the table the entire time, tablet at her side, face composed. "Thank you, Camille," Denise said. "Of course," Camille said simply. Denise turned and walked off the terrace. She didn't look back. The white stone path curved away from the pool toward the main lobby, and she followed it, her footsteps steady, the salt air thick and warm around her, the sound of the water fading behind her with every step. The sign on the door was new: Whitfield and Oho Events, Suite 204. Denise paused in the hallway and looked at it the way she looked at everything these days, without rushing, letting herself actually feel it. The letters were clean and sharp against brushed silver, her name first because Terrence had insisted on it. She pushed the door open. The office smelled like fresh paint and coffee. The walls were a warm ivory now instead of the tired beige they'd inherited with the old lease. 2 new desks sat near the windows, already claimed by their new junior coordinators. A mood board for a spring gala covered the far wall, layered in fabric swatches and venue photos and color samples. Denise set her bag down at her desk and stood at the window for a moment. The city moved below her the way it always did, without asking permission from anyone. She had learned about Roland's job in pieces. Terrence had found it first, a flag on a shared expense app Roland used through his company. Roland had routed some of the resort charges through a linked business account, a shortcut that probably seemed harmless at the time. It wasn't. His company ran a routine compliance review 2 weeks after he returned from the trip. The personal charges came up immediately. He was placed on administrative leave within the same week and let go shortly after that. The niece hadn't celebrated when she heard. She'd just nodded, slowly, the way you nod when something makes complete sense. Patricia had called her the same month, not to defend Roland this time. The call was short. Patricia's voice had been tired, the kind of tired that comes from finally stopping something you'd been carrying for a long time. "I didn't know how bad it was," Patricia said. "I want you to know that." "I believe you," Denise said, and she did. That was the last time they spoke for a while. Patricia had distanced herself from defending him after that. What she'd said at the diner about Roland feeling unhappy for years had come back to her once she understood the full picture. Denise didn't hold it against her. Patricia had loved her son in the blind way mothers sometimes do, filling the gaps in his story with her own good faith. The truth had simply run out of room to hide. Yolanda had reached out once, a text, 3 sentences. "I know you don't want to hear from me. I just need you to know I'm sorry. I hope you're okay." Denise read it once, put her phone face down on her desk, and went back to work. She never replied. There was nothing to say that the silence didn't already say better. The loan had come through in the 4th month. Denise had rebuilt her credit faster than the bank's advisor expected, paying down the balance Roland had run up, disputing 2 charges that came back in her favor, and keeping every account spotless from the morning she landed back home from Turks and Caicos. The business expansion loan came through on a Tuesday afternoon. Terrence had texted her a single line. "It's approved." She'd been in the middle of a venue walkthrough. She'd read the message, let out one slow breath, and kept walking. The partnership with Terrence was finalized the same week. Equal shares, equal say, both names on the door. He'd brought in 2 new corporate clients through his accounting network. She'd expanded into destination events. Their client roster had grown by 30% in 5 months. The house sold in 6 weeks. Clean offer, no contingencies. The day she handed over the keys, she felt nothing like sadness. She felt like someone setting down a bag she had been carrying for so long she'd stopped noticing the weight. Her new place was smaller, quieter. Every piece of furniture in it was hers, chosen by her, paid for by her, arranged exactly the way she wanted it. No one's preferences to balance against her own. No one's moods filling up the rooms. She had repainted the bedroom a deep, dusty green the first week she moved in. She had put her work calendar on the kitchen wall and a good coffee maker on the counter. She had bought herself flowers on a Wednesday for no reason at all. She had booked the trip 3 months ago. 7 days, a villa on a quiet island, small enough that most people hadn't heard of it. A snorkeling excursion on day 3, a cooking class on day 5, dinners alone with a good book and whatever the kitchen had that evening. Every reservation was under her name, her frequent flyer number, her card, her loyalty tier, which had been restored and then some. She had packed the night before, taking her time, folding things carefully. She had set her alarm for 4:30 and slept better than she had in years. The plane lifted off the runway and the city fell away beneath her. Denise leaned back in her seat. She looked out the window at the thin blue line where the sky met the horizon, wide and open and going on without an end she could see from here. She smiled. Not for anyone, not at anything in particular, just because she meant it. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I've got 2 stories on the screen that you have to watch next. Have a great day!